You're listening to the Allman Report on NewsTalkSTL.
Happy Friday the 13th, everybody. This is the Allman Report edition for Friday the 13th here on NewsTalkSTL. Appreciate you being with me. Thanks so much for all the love on Facebook. Don't forget, I saw a couple of you share the page, and I really love that. And so when you share the show, it gets a lot of response, so I appreciate you doing that. We're on all platforms, Facebook, Truth Social, X, you name it. We're sticky everywhere. And so just so you know, you can watch the show anytime, people. Yeah. Well, the fascist dictatorship created by the liberals, Democrats, Biden-Harris administration in full swing in Newton, Massachusetts, as we had a pro-Hamas demonstrator accosting pro-Israel demonstrators on the street. This is how it wound up. Almost, you could hear the sound of him yelling at people. Genocide! Yeah,
you are so stupid.
Yes, you are, my man. So I'm gonna talk more about this later on, but we cut to the quick here, and this idiot tackles one of the pro-Israel demonstrators. He goes across the street and tackles him, and one of the pro-Israel demonstrators, who happens to be an Iraq war veteran and a gun owner and a legal gun carrier, shoots him in the stomach. And rightly so. Now, however, he is charged with 2 crimes that could send him to prison for a long, long time: assault and battery with a dangerous weapon and violation of a constitutional right causing injury. Never mind that he's the one that crossed the street to tackle this guy, violating his constitutional rights. The DA, of course, she's a left-wing nut there, had this description of what happened.
There was an individual apparently completely randomly walking down the other side of the street.
Of course, just completely randomly walking down the other side of the street from the demonstrators. Of course, completely randomly.
Words were exchanged back and forth across the street. That individual, who was not part of the group, at some point began crossing the street, appears to have gone back to his side of the street, ultimately came across and jumped upon one of the demonstrators.
Yeah, attacked him. So how is it that the demonstrator who shot him in self-defense is now charged with 2 crimes? So we're going to delve into this. This is unbelievable, a travesty of justice, but not unusual in the world of these left-wing DAs all across the country who are doing the bidding of the U.S. dictatorship that we have right now. Well, since it is Friday the 13th, we are unlucky enough because we thought, well, I'm not really a believer in superstition and things like that and bad luck, but it just so happens that the bad luck is ours, and it's at this moment where Mark Kaysen has decided to invade our studio through Zoom. We didn't even send him a link. He just shows up on the screen, and that must be the Friday the 13th we're talking about. Mark Kaysen, you're in the classroom with all of those young and, well, soon-to-be poisoned minds.
Impressionable.
Yes, I'm sorry, impressionable minds. I didn't mean soon-to-be poisoned minds.
That's
sorry.
all right.
So, Mark, this is something that you guys, because I know you're all into civil liberties and all defending the rights of people speaking, and you think Trump's a danger to democracy and everything else. What do you think is more dangerous, Trump or the fact that a DA is charging a guy who was physically attacked for stating his views in support of Israel? And he didn't say anything threatening to the guy, nothing. The guy crosses the street, tackles him. He winds up getting popped in the stomach, and then the guy who shot him is the one who's charged.
Well, first of all, if people are attacking each other, it makes sense that the government is going to step up and make a decision about who's doing the right thing and the wrong thing. If we're only talking about civil liberties, if we're only talking about the right to express yourself, I think you know that Jews have supported the right of Nazis to demonstrate for decades in the United States. In fact, Jewish lawyers from the ACLU have defended the rights of Nazis. So, I mean, on this one, except for the fact that somebody's attacking somebody else, which is a problem, but if we're just talking about the language and we're just talking about speaking up, I think you're going to find that most people on the left are going to support everybody's right to speak up. So
then you're saying you support the person who shot the guy in the stomach after being attacked then, right?
Well, no, wait. First of all, we need to take all your guns away. That'll stop all this.
That's never going to happen. And in fact, those students behind you, their parents probably have guns to protect themselves in their homes. And so I don't even think the students behind you are going to agree with having guns confiscated so that only the military and the government and the bad guys have guns. It's never going to happen. Well,
the bad guys wouldn't have any guns if we got rid of them.
No, yes, they would. They don't abide by gun confiscation programs and gun buyback programs and everything
else.
We're
not going to do it. I understand that completely. We're not going to do it. But if you want to know what's going on, I mean, people start shooting. Hey, you're going to get in trouble. You shouldn't be shooting.
Well, yeah, you should be when you're getting attacked and jumped by somebody, physically attacked. Who knows what could have happened? That guy could have had a knife, whatever, since he so randomly attacked him. You never know. And, of course, this man legally carried a weapon and legally discharged his weapon in defense of his person. And so this is a clear-cut case. I'm not, I guarantee you, if the shoe were on the other foot, Mark, you know darn well that you would be in favor of defending the rights of the person who's the pro-Hamas person who was attacked by the guy. If that pro-Hamas person shot him.
First of all, I think you know me better than that.
Okay,
I don't want anybody attacking anybody.
Right. So you're saying you would defend a charge against a pro-Hamas demonstrator who shot somebody in the stomach after he was attacked.
Nobody should be shooting guns.
Right.
I mean, I've already told you. I mean, Nazis have the right to express themselves in the United States of America. Go ahead.
This isn't the Kamala Harris-Trump debate. You have to answer my question. You're not Kamala Harris.
I think I've answered.
So you would defend charging the pro-Hamas demonstrator with these two crimes that the pro-Israel demonstrator was charged with? Yes or no?
If you shot a gun, I am going to say charge.
So you would support that? Yes.
I would charge people who shoot guns.
Okay, that's fine. At least you're consistent in your hatred towards the Constitution and the right of somebody to defend themselves. So that's good. I wanted to establish that. So
you know that I'm consistent for sure.
So it looks like the debate didn't help your girl at all. And in fact, on the economy, it turns out that there were several polls that indicated the trust of her handling the economy actually went down a couple of points after the debate, and Trump's trust went up a couple of points after the debate. These are some of the polls from the New York Times and CNN that you always tout when they are going against the fortunes of Donald Trump. So it looks like Kamala really didn't do herself any favors, especially among undecided voters. It must be making you very unhappy right now.
Well, that's a pretty desperate analysis on your part, since the Morning Consult poll came out today. That's the brand new, that's the newest poll that's out, and it shows that Kamala is now 5 points ahead of Donald nationally, and she is gaining in every one of the swing states. She in fact, she's ahead in everywhere. I think it's except for North Carolina, which she's down by 1 point, and it was -6. I mean, Donald is crashing and burning.
That's not what your buddy Nate Silver says. Yesterday, I told everybody, that Nate Silver, 538, is predicting a electoral college win, even if it might not be a popular vote win. And in those swing states you're talking about, Arizona, for crying out loud, is like 77% pro-Trump and 23% pro-Kamala in Arizona. So I don't know what you're talking about. And Nate Silver's the one who is oftentimes most right about these kind of things, not the Morning Consult.
Yeah, well, let me tell you something. That number that you just gave, about 70-something to 20, that is absolute insanity. That's Donald Trump using his Joseph Stalin program of polling people. You know, it's not
that's Nate
Stalin
Silver's
won 90 to 10.
That's not Trump's poll, Mark. That is Nate Silver.
I've heard Trump say it. Trump is out there telling this story that he won by 90 to 6 and all this other stuff. Look, the fact is this: Kamala's ahead in the swing states all over the United States. And like I say, maybe a point behind in North Carolina. They are pouring millions of dollars into these states because Kamala has unlimited money, because Democrats and independents and even Republicans are giving her money because the support for Kamala is on fire.
You mean Republican sellouts? You mean like the Dick Cheneys of the world that you guys hated back in the day? And I'll have proof of that during the show, by the way. It's very funny to hear all the comments about Dick Cheney, who's now an American hero to the left.
He's a hero because he put the country above his political beliefs.
Right. Yeah. He's never Dick Cheney has never put the country first. And in fact, if I'm in your camp now regarding the Iraq war, and so Dick Cheney's never put his country first. It's always been his money first, and shows
that's called
as the Bush family.
Called profiles in courage.
Yeah. Oh, Lordy. So did you hear also that the Postal Service union has now endorsed Kamala Harris? You know, the ones who are going to be handling the ballots, the mail-in ballots, they now support Kamala Harris. That ought to work out swimmingly.
Well, I think everybody, and especially the unions, is supporting Kamala Harris. You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the country is on fire for her. Don't you get it?
Yeah, no, I don't. And it's not true. And I'm sorry to cackle and laugh, but I have to tell you, it's fun to listen to you, stare in the camera with your Mr. Magoo glasses and tell us that the country is on fire.
Yeah. Well, let me say this. This is Earth 1 and Earth 2. We're Earth 1, you're Earth 2. Okay.
That's fine. But I don't know what you guys are going to do when everything comes crashing down for you in November. You'll probably riot, right? And you'll probably call the election a fraud. You'll want to get rid of the Electoral College, won't you?
Okay. The truth is that Donald is sending people out all over the country to dispute the election on the day that he loses, and he's hoping that he can get it thrown into the House of Representatives so that he could win an election that he loses, which is what Rutherford B. Hayes did against Samuel Tilden in 1876. And Donald thinks, hey, I could do it.
Well, that's what John Quincy Adams did to Andrew Jackson also. But I don't think that's going to happen. We're going to have a January 6th convening again, and they're going to go over the veracity of Electoral College votes. And if you guys lose and you guys have both a House member and a senator who wants to dispute the vote totals in Pennsylvania, you might just get your wish. So you can only hope that either way, whether Trump wins or Kamala wins, that there isn't a rubber stamping of the election if there are questions about it. That just shouldn't happen. And I don't think it should happen if Trump wins. So,
well, Trump won't win. And he will refuse to concede. And I can tell you right now, there's a lawsuit going on today, which is so important. And you can read about it in the Atlantic. Lisa Rubin wrote about it. I mean, it's a lawsuit to stop Trump from playing this game where he's trying to prevent these votes from being certified because he knows he can't win.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have discovered through our science that there is one person who reads the Atlantic in the United States of America, and it's Mark Kaysen. Yay. Yeah, there you are. So real quickly, what's on the menu for the class today? What are you lying to them about today?
Yeah, they're going to be presenting on James Baldwin articles from something called the James Baldwin Review, which comes out of Washington University.
Okay. Nobody knows who that is or what that is. So
you don't know. Well, you know James Baldwin.
I don't. I'm sorry. I don't. I haven't.
I'm sad to hear that.
Yeah. If you tell me, maybe it'll shake something in my brain. But right now,
well,
I don't.
He wrote The Fire Next Time. I mean, he died in 1987. He was a civil rights advocate. He was a novelist, a poet, a famous black leader. And well, like I say, everybody knows James Baldwin. But...
So they will be presenting then, almost like book reports of the review.
Like in a way, but more than book reports. But okay.
Okay, so what will they be doing? So what will and how will
they've read journal articles,
right?
And they're going to talk about the journal articles, and they're going to talk about, of course, James Baldwin's ideas, which included the fact that he thought that the racial situation in America was hopeless, and which is sort of funny because you know this whole argument very well because of being involved with Onion Horton over the years, who also thought race in America was hopeless. And it looks like both of them were right.
Well, I have to tell you, race in America is made more hopeless by the fact that illegal aliens are invading our inner cities and basically taking the place of blacks, thus making the black population second-class citizens again. Just ask the people in Chicago, in the inner cities of Chicago, and beyond. Ask the people who are having homeless shelters drained only to then be occupied by illegal aliens. Ask the people who, for instance, in Springfield, Ohio, who are losing their apartments and their rental properties because landlords now have an ability to have Haitians with gobs of money in the form of vouchers pay more for rent. So they're saying, okay, it's time for you guys to leave. And this has happened. This is documented. And now they're being kicked out of their apartments. Just wait until that chicken comes home to roost, my friend. I hope I bet you that some of your students know about this and know about the illegal aliens who have come into inner cities and now have put the black population again, as if we couldn't imagine this happening again as second-class citizens in America. That's your race problem. That's your race hopelessness.
Yeah, what you left out, which I don't blame you, I'd have left it out too, is this idiotic story about how they're eating your pets. Which Donald is spreading all over the country, and it's a lie.
Yeah,
and here's the thing:
everybody in Springfield, Ohio, is not lying. We have pictures of Haitians carrying geese.
Yeah, the Republican. No, you have pictures of Donald carrying geese. Let me tell you something.
This is a Haitian. I have a picture of it.
The Republican governor of Ohio and the Republican head of that city both say that it never happened, that none of it's true, and this, not only is it all made up, but do you know that the least crimes committed by anybody in the United States is illegal immigrants?
Well,
most crimes are committed by native-born American citizens.
But by population, illegal aliens are committing more crimes. I mean, obviously, less. If you take the entire population of people inhabiting the United States of America, yeah, they're going to come down low. But as a group, crime is high among them, and violent crime is high among them.
If you do it the way you're discussing it, where you do it by like 100 per 100,000 people,
yeah, by rate.
I can tell you right now, the illegals are doing nothing. They are committing no crimes. and it's American citizens, and probably the white ones, who are committing the most crime.
Tell that to the families who testified before the House Judiciary Committee and the families who've had people murdered by illegal aliens. And I will tell you that generally when it comes to violent crime happens in closed settings among people who know each other. Among illegal aliens, that's not the case. They are preying on people who otherwise are just minding their own business. And so there's a big difference there. And as it relates to rate, that is important because if you look, for instance, at St. Louis City, the city of St. Louis always shows up so high on a crime rate list because it's judged on the basis of only 300,000 people. So you're always going to get that high rate. So if you judge, for instance, crime among a population of illegal aliens, that rate is high. The FBI,
it's extremely low.
When the FBI says that violent crimes are going down, that might be true. But among the population of illegal aliens, it is up. That is true.
No, it's actually down, and it's down to the lowest level that anybody has ever seen. And I've got the detailed information on it. I mean, statistically, there's no question about it. Those numbers are down to almost nothing.
Check the internet for me, and you'll see the pictures of Haitians carrying geese and people telling no, it's not. It's a real picture. And also I have the audio of someone calling into the Clark County Sheriff's Department saying that there's somebody carrying a bunch of geese in his hands, all dead, and that's happening there, Mark. But that's not the worst thing that's happening. The worst thing that's happening is that benefits among people in Springfield, Ohio, are being denied, while benefits to Haitians are being okayed. In these centers where they're receiving SNAP benefits, everything else, the lines are 9-1 Haitians. That's not acceptable.
None of this even happens. It's all made up.
No, it's not. I have the video of it.
It's totally Trump. Trump lies when he opens his mouth.
Okay,
except for when he tells you his name.
You guys you're just in denial. And
I'm on Earth One where everything is right.
And it leads me to believe that the story you told me about your car accident it happened this week, right?
It happened last Tuesday.
Last Tuesday. So your Lexus is totaled, right?
Totaled.
That was an ugly car anyway. Wasn't it it was like a bronze Lexus, wasn't it? Oh, gray. Okay. For some reason, it's, what is it, like a 1987 Lexus or?
Let's put it this way. It'll be a brand new Lexus next week.
Yeah. How did the masks hanging off of your rearview mirror fare?
Yeah, you should have seen the airbags all down next to me, and I'm sitting here looking at these airbags. And the funny thing is I thought that in fact I called the studio because I was on my way to broadcast, and I called the studio and I said, look, I just had this accident. I'll probably be an hour late. Well, that was crazy. I was nuts because I spent 8 hours in the emergency room, but as it turned out, nothing broken. So
yeah, 8 hours in the emergency room.
Sure.
Did you even feel injured?
I've got bruises all over me. I was kaboomed.
Yeah, and the first thing you grabbed as your car was in flames were the masks hanging from the rearview mirror, though, right? That one famous one.
Well,
you wear.
You got to protect yourself against COVID.
So this was your fault, obviously, right?
No, she ran a stop sign.
Oh. Huh. Are you sure about that? Because, I mean, up is down. You never know. In your world, the truth doesn't matter. So we're just going to say that the woman did not run a stoplight and that she legitimately stopped, and you're the one that popped out because you didn't give her the right of way. So it's your fault.
That is a Donald Trump move, and so I understand it very well. But I will tell you that the insurance company has already assigned liability 100% to her. End of story.
Does she have insurance?
Same insurance company that I have.
Oh, okay.
Actually.
Wow, you found one that actually has insurance. That's good, too. Yeah. All right, so good luck to the class. I hope you guys do a great job today with your presentations. And I do have to tell you, Mark, I think one thing I do respect about you is that you wear a tie in class.
Yes, I do.
And you're a lot like Trump. He always wears a tie. I don't think I've ever seen you without a tie on, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, he wears that red tie and that blue jacket, and all of his obsequious followers, like a bunch of penguins, chase after him, wearing the same thing and saying, "Donald, please love us."
I don't wear red ties. It tends to kind of wash me out, so I don't really wear a red tie.
Not you.
And you're wearing a yellow tie on top of a yellow shirt, which I think is impressive.
Impressive. And I'm colorblind, but
obviously. All right. Well, listen, Mark Kaysen, thank you for ruining our day and night.
But let's not forget talkstl.net.
Okay. Whatever that is. Yeah.
Talkstl.net is the place to go to click my website and to watch that program I do in the afternoon.
Yeah, we're going to sue you. We're going to send you a cease and desist order because you're stealing our name, basically. We're News Talk.
Lawyers, good ones.
We're News Talk, and what are you again?
TalkSTL.net.
We're News Talk STL, so you're going to get a letter from our lawyer.
I think mine was before yours.
No way. This is a station that's legendary. It's a blowtorch.
Yeah, it's legendary. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
The Trump.
Yeah. We'll see you around, buddy.
Okay. See you on the way to jail to visit your hero.
He's never going to jail, but we'll find a van somewhere and see where that one takes us. All right.
You got it.
See you later. Bye, babies. See you later.
Love you, Jamie.
Okay. Yeah. Love you too, Mark Kaysen. All right. Unbelievable. Coming up, we do have this. Since you mentioned Cheney and how much these people love Cheney now. But wait till you hear this mashup of how Democrats and liberals described Cheney at one time. These people have no rudder, they have no core, and that's always a problem. This brought to you by the Wallner home selling team of Berkshire Hathaway, Rodney and Jen Wallner. Such great people, love these guys so much, and they're great members of the community. They always are raising money for great charities that they really do believe in. And more importantly to you, for your need to sell your home or what have you, they have a whole list of buyers who are ready to go because they really work hard to cultivate this list. And so when it's time for you to sell your home, they guarantee you a contract. And this is a guaranteed contract without any strings attached in terms of you having a contract with them. So you can walk away anytime if you're not happy or if you change your mind or what have you. And they're licensed in both Missouri and Illinois, and they're ready to rock for you at 314-810-SOLD. That's 314-810-SOLD. That's the Wallner home selling team. Thank you, Rodney and Jen, for your continued support of free, common sense, conservative radio.
You're listening to the Allman Report on NewsTalkSTL.
Good evening, everyone. This is the Allman Report on NewsTalkSTL. 101.9 and 94.1 on your radio dial. Everywhere you need it to be, also in any way, shape, or form. So good evening, everybody, and welcome. So to my point about the liberals, the left, the Democrats being rudderless and without a core, because they will gravitate towards anything. They'll defend, for instance, like you just heard Mark Hasen do, somebody who jumps somebody because of their political views. In this case, you know the story now of the Hamas demonstrator, the pro-Hamas guy attacking a pro-Israel demonstrator, getting a bullet in his stomach, and then it's the pro-Israel demonstrator who's charged with the crimes, not the guy who attacked him for exercising his God-given rights to free speech. So you heard him say, well, he should be charged. That's his fault, whatever. And it happens all over the place. But the most phenomenal example of just their rudderlessness is this sudden love of the Cheney, Bush, McCain cabal that we have all sent to hell in our own minds politically and culturally and beyond. And so you had Kamala Harris at the debate being so happy about the endorsement by Dick Cheney. And as I've told you, and I talked about it a lot this week about the Republican Party and why they actually want Kamala Harris to win, because it is the best way to keep their nests feathered, because all they're into is the military-industrial complex, open borders, and unlimited wars, and also unlimited cash in their pockets as a result. So they just want to go back to those days. Anyway, it's interesting how Kamala Harris boasted about Cheney's endorsement, but it's also interesting if you look back on all the people who are now supporting her and what they said about Dick Cheney. Here it is.
The endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney.
Dick Cheney and Satan. That's next.
The Sith Lord is back.
Like a demon, it rises again.
Dick Cheney, Darth Vader, Satan.
Thank you to Satan for giving me inspiration.
I mean, these are guys who all back in the day even compared Cheney to Satan. You remember all that.
On how to play this role.
We don't need Dick Cheney.
Dick Cheney was dangerous. That war.
The only thing you got to do is just be better than Dick Cheney.
I like to see Dick Cheney exposed. He's a liar.
I actually have the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney.
You were part of the Dick Cheney cult that led to hundreds of thousands of innocent Iraqis being killed because of the cult you were in.
Cheney dishonestly made up the idea they had nuclear weapons. Just lied. Why do they want these wars? What is it that they don't like somebody because they don't like the look of their face?
Irrelevant national embarrassments, Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney.
I'm old enough to remember Dick Cheney driving over to the CIA.
And by the way, not one of these individuals you're hearing, Chris Matthews isn't on the air anymore, but not one of these individuals you're hearing ever called Kamala Harris out for her sudden transition into worshiping and loving the man they called the Dark Lord for 10 years.
Look over their shoulders to make sure they gave him the intel that he wanted so as to justify the Iraq war.
I actually have the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney.
No apologies, no regrets from former Vice President Dick Cheney for the harsh CIA interrogation techniques.
Under Dick Cheney's tutelage, we got the photographs at Abu Ghraib.
The former vice president, at one point, signing a waterboard kit.
Cheney, of course, unrepentant. You know what? Go to hell.
I have to admit that as much as I can't stand Dick Cheney now, there was a time I had a T-shirt, one of my favorite T-shirts, and you guys know how much I love them, and it said, "I'd rather be waterboarding." I one time wore that to a gym in the Maplewood area, and I knew it was going to trigger all these liberals there because Maplewood is liberal hell and home of Penzi Spices, by the way. Never go there. Just want to let you know. So because because they hate you at Benzie Spices. But I'd rather be waterboarding was one of my favorite T-shirts. I don't know where
rotten
it is
to
now.
his very core, which is in itself a tiny black hole from which no joy or light can escape. The ancient Coptics knew this man as Unhohotek, the Dark One, the jagged tooth forest demon who steals our children. We know him as former Vice President Dick Cheney.
I actually have the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney.
What do you think of Dick Cheney? And people would say, well, I hate everything he stands for.
I am someone fundamentally opposed to the politics of Liz Cheney and her father, Dick Cheney. I literally started writing books.
And by the way, fast forward from that Rachel Maddow bit to when she interviewed and slobbered all over Liz Cheney. So again, these people have no core. They have no rudder. They'll go to anybody who supports them as long as that person supports them, no matter who they are or what they said about them a while ago. That's called being a prostitute, basically. That's called actually lifting up your skirt for anybody who will come your way and give you that almighty coin of support.
In the first place, more than a decade ago, because I had so much to get off my chest about what I thought was wrong with the Cheney family approach to war and foreign policy. That first book I ever wrote is literally dedicated to him.
Dick Cheney, profoundly dangerous.
Cheney, I think, was arrested twice.
A master manipulator like Dick Cheney, willing to say anything.
And now, as the cascade of misery and death and chaos he did so much to unleash rages anew, Mr. Cheney has the unadulterated gall to come before the country and tell us that it's all someone else's fault. You said there was no doubt Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. You said we would be greeted as liberators. You said the Iraq insurgency was in the last throes back in 2005. And you said that after our intervention, extremists would have to, quote, rethink their strategy of jihad. Now, with almost $1 trillion spent there, with 4,500 American lives lost there, what do you say to those who say you were so wrong about so much at the expense of so many?
Yeah. And that was her interview with Dick Cheney and his spit, Liz. And I'm telling you, again, Megyn Kelly, you know where she stands on all this. She's been consistent there. But most of those people who are still on the air that you just heard from never said one word in the aftermath of Kamala Harris slobbering all over Dick Cheney at the nationally televised debate. And I can't even imagine what they were thinking. But the worst part about them now is that no matter what they're thinking, they refuse to say it, because they're so imprisoned in this Democrat love and fantasy of a Kamala Harris presidency. And so it's really pretty crazy when you see how they reacted to them, the Cheneys and the Bushes back in the day, and how they are actually now at this point deciding they're going to love on the Cheneys just by their own silence. It's despicable, but nothing surprises us anymore there. All right, this is surprising, though. A former Clinton advisor is calling for an internal investigation into ABC rigging that presidential debate against Donald Trump. There's some stuff here that you need to hear that you haven't heard yet, but you're going to hear it here on the Allman Report on News Talk STL.
You're listening to the Allman Report on NewsTalkSTL.
Good evening, everyone. This is the Allman Report on NewsTalkSTL. Jamie Allman here, pleased and privileged to be with you on this Friday the 13th. Don't forget to not only like, but also share this page if you're on wherever you are. If you're on Facebook especially, either on the News Talk Facebook or the Jamie Allman page, make sure you share it. Heather Harms, thank you so much last night for sharing this. It got a lot of reaction. It's one way we're going to able to get it out there. A lot of people, even though it was in the newspaper, all that kind of stuff, still might not know that your friendly neighborhood Jamie Allman is back on the air. So hopefully you will be able to spread the news and make sure that everybody knows. That is for sure. All right, so Mark Penn is a former advisor to the Clintons, and he is now a market researcher. He's done a lot of stuff like that. And we all know kind of how the fact-checking went during the ABC News debate. One thing that you might not have known right off the bat is that Lindsay Davis, one of the moderators, was also Kamala Harris's sorority sister. How this managed to still be something that they put up there and they presented as a fair fight is beyond me. And again, like I say, I think this is probably the last day we're going to talk about the debate. I think that it has been firmly established that this was 3 against 1, that this was to use a basketball analogy, this was a game of statue where you had 3 guards basically keeping the star from essentially moving, doing any kind of layups, even dribbling out of the hole, whatever, and then flooded the zone, so to speak, with a bunch of fact checks, and on Kamala Harris's side, a bunch of just bald-faced lies and misrepresentation. So that has been established. It's also been established in the end, and I told you this yesterday and even the day before, as we kind of talked about the debate. I said, don't worry about it because this debate is inconsequential except for, in a bad way, for Kamala Harris, whose poll numbers on specific issues like the economy, which is the all-important issue for Americans, her poll numbers went down. So the Kamala Harris people loved her because she didn't come across as a ditz. They were afraid of that, and so they loved her for that. The Trump people loved him, and I did too. We were frustrated, but whatever. But in the end, the poll numbers in the aftermath and even the polling of undecided voters clearly favor Donald Trump. So there's not much that we need to worry about. But still, for the future and for the sake of clarity, I think it is important to delve into what exactly happened, how ABC did this and concocted this, and what kind of plans they had and everything else in terms of boxing President Trump in. Mark Penn was on with John Solomon, and John Solomon Reports is the show he does. John Solomon's a great guy. I'll have him on the air for you maybe even next week. The guy's just nails, and he does a show on Just the News. So this is great. So this is an interview with Mark Penn, who is, well, a leans Democrat and is a former supporter of the Clintons, now saying that there needs to be an internal investigation into ABC News.
Well, it's interesting because I walked away like everyone else in the country. Oh, yeah, it seems she really seemed to win. You know, she came across strong. He seemed to be on the defensive the whole time. And it wasn't until the next morning, and I kind of went through all the tapes, and I realized, well, wait a moment. You know, when the refs put their finger on the scale, you know, it's not exactly a fair contest. And then if it's not exactly a fair contest, it means you're being played with in terms of what the results really are. Normally, look, if the refs are putting their fingers on the scale, you can't count the outcome of the game because the score is not a real score.
Yeah, I think that's just it. And it's really interesting because when you looked at the undecided panels that Reuters did, I think CNN did, the New York Times did.
You guys heard me mention that before.
There was an unexpected sort of reaction because there's no doubt on the art of debate performance, Kamala Harris did better. But there was some deductive things going on with undecided voters who kind of felt like, well, under the circumstances, maybe Donald Trump did better because he was fighting 3-on-1. Was that surprising to see some of the reaction from the panels?
Yes, I think it was surprising because you look at that and you said, okay, well, she clearly won. But I think the undecided voters were also looking for something else, and I don't think they got it because of the way the debate was run. These undecided voters are typically been pressed by the economy. They really, as I always say, look, if you're an abortion voter, you know who you're voting for. If you're an immigration voter, you know who you're voting for. If you're an economy voter, I think that's a lot of where the undecided and getting 2 minutes on the economy and maybe one question, and then what do they focus on with Trump? That they focus on the tariff issues, and they don't talk about the $5 trillion tax increase that she's got. They just skipped over the first, the most important issue to these voters, and I think kind of left them out. And so I wonder they scratched their head. And there's another thing about that this debate, which really I kept thinking about, which was that, well, how would this debate have been if the moderators had turned around after she said, oh, and you used Charlottesville and you're for a national born on debate. If the moderators had turned around to her and said, those things aren't true, how would this debate have gone?
Yeah, it would have gone a lot differently. So Penn continues in this podcast, and you can find it yourself and listen to it as well. He says that he wants, I think they should do a full internal investigation. They should hire an outside law firm and find out exactly what was planned in advance. And I think in his mind, there's a suspicion that is quite high that if you review all of their internal texts and emails, you'll probably find that there was a level of collusion in front of this debate. Now, I don't think that's ever going to happen. ABC is never going to do this. You know how the world of the media and journalists are. They'll never, oftentimes whenever there's a controversy, the first words out of a media operation's mouth is no comment. They're never going to review themselves because they're just that egotistical, and they're certainly never going to hire an outside firm. Some of them did when it came to sexual assault allegations and that kind of thing, but they're never going to hire a firm that on the outside that is going to in any way, shape, or form question their credibility. As far as they're concerned, they're just going to keep their mouths shut. Our second hour has a lot for you coming up on the Allman Report on News Talk STL.
You're listening to the Allman Report on NewsTalkSTL.
I saw the light, I've been baptized by the fire in your touch and the flame in your eyes. I'm born to love again, I'm a brand new
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Allman Report. No Friday night is complete without a little Brooks and Dunn, wouldn't you say? Absolutely. All right, so I'm a little conflicted on the issue of John Legend. I try to take certain people for their quality of their music, and sometimes I'm able to leave the politics out of it. I have to admit that, I used to love Bruce Springsteen and still really appreciate so much of his music, but my attitude towards him has changed a little bit. So sometimes you just can't help but have that humanness come into you and think, oh man, I somehow his songs don't sound the same to me because I know what a vicious left-wing crazy he is. And sometimes I can get over that. I can't get over it with Green Day, and I can't get over it with Bruce Springsteen. I try not to be too persnickety about musicians who talk. I mean, let's put it this way. I'm a person with a microphone, and I have a lot of freedom and a lot of privilege and a lot of opportunity to tell people how I feel. I have a platform, and I appreciate it. So I'm not one of those shut up and sing guys who don't think that an actor or a singer or whatever who should keep their mouth shut just because they need to be my muse and play music for me and do whatever. If I have a platform, I feel strongly about something, then I'm going to use my platform. That's a normal course of things, and so I don't begrudge somebody who is a rock star or, they're obnoxious when they do it. Bette Midler, who I never listened to anyway, is really obnoxious, but I don't blame her for trying to impart her political views on people. If you feel strongly about something and you have a forum, you're going to do it. And so I knock yourself out and just let the chips fall where they may. John Legend is one of those people. I think that song, All of Me, All of Me Loves All of You, is a really beautiful song. It's a great song. I sometimes am like, wow, that's a really well-written song. I really, really like that. But John Legend himself is really detestable, to tell you the truth, especially in this one. So if you can imagine the suffering going on in Springfield, Ohio, and it's not just it's funny how we need to make sure, and if I didn't know better myself, I would think that the liberals were the ones who came up with the eating cat story and even the duck story, even though I know for a fact that has happened. It's a matter of fact, by anecdote, by audio evidence, and by physical evidence, the Haitians are indeed eating animals in Springfield, Ohio. That is a matter of fact. But you'll notice that has become the main issue for everybody. Debunking this whole cat thing, cat eating and all that kind of stuff, when the worst part of what's happening in Springfield, Ohio, isn't the eating of pets. It's the fact that the places where people are picking up benefits like SNAP and other places are being flooded with Haitians who are outnumbering people in lines, including veterans, some of them who are being denied, 9-1. The other thing is, as I told Kaysen earlier, and I've told you this already, so I just always want to kind of lay the groundwork for what I'm about to say, and that is that this is a matter of fact, too. There are landlords in Springfield, Ohio, who are kicking people out of their places, either when they're exercising something in the contract or in the rental agreement, or deciding at the end they're going to kick them out or what have you, and then are replacing them with the higher paying Haitians. And you'd think, well, no, I thought the Haitians were poor and they all go, that's why they're eating cats and they're eating ducks. No, it's because the Haitians are given these humongous vouchers And these vouchers are allowing them to spend sometimes even twice the amount of money that a normal person in Springfield, Ohio would pay for rent. So, of course, the landlords are like, oh, wow, this is yummy. I could get double the rent I have by removing these people and taking the federally funded vouchers from them. And you'll notice those are the big problems that are happening. Those are what are affecting the people of Springfield, Ohio the most. Not the cat eating and not the duck eating or the geese stealing or what have you. It's those things that are affecting them. So I think that sometimes the liberals are more than happy to try to start and get into this debate back and forth about eating cats and doing all this kind of and smearing the migrants, when in fact the reality is much worse than that. And it's being hidden by this argument over cat eating. And I think the liberals want it that way because then you have no questions about the inequity of the benefit structure and the benefits that are happening. You have no questions about the landlords kicking people out, favoring voucher holding Haitians. You have no question about that. And you have no questions as to why the Haitians are there to begin with. We have only this debate over cat eating, which is the way I think they want it. I also would recommend that J.D. Vance and some of the other folks tell these stories that I'm telling and go ahead and just say, okay, so you don't agree with the cat eating. This is on video. Lines of Haitians waiting for SNAP benefits and veterans benefits or health benefits and things that veterans can't get, 9-1. That's on video. I see that on video. And not only here's a video of a guy stealing geese, but here here is the video testimony of a person who says this happened with a landlord and a client of mine who now is homeless because they were kicked out of these places. So if I'm J.D. Vance and some of these other folks, I'm moving past the cat eating and going to the reality of what's happening and even the source and origination of the idea to put these Haitians in Springfield, Ohio to begin with. That would be something I think we need to motor on towards. So anyway, guess what happens? John Legend, if you could believe this, by the way, Legend is sitting there. It must be in a hotel because he's got one of those hotel bathrobes on, if you can believe that. So here's a guy in this cushy hotel room with his plush hotel bathrobe on, lecturing us about what we know to be the plight of the people in Springfield, Ohio. And he's not having to live. He's from Springfield, Ohio. He's not having to live, though, their lives. So it's easy for him to get on the internet and preach about loving one another and how mean you are to talk about cats.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Legend, and I was born as John R. Stevens from a place called Springfield, Ohio. Oh, Springfield, Ohio.
So now he's going to start lecturing everybody from his plush hotel room or wherever it is. Maybe he's in his house. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me that he's in his house wearing a hotel bathrobe that he probably stole anyway. I don't know. But who wears a hotel bathrobe around? Well, okay, sorry if you do. Sorry.
You may have heard of Springfield, Ohio this week. In fact, if you watch the debate, we were discussed by our presidential candidates, including a very special, interesting man named Donald J. Trump. Now, Springfield has had a large influx of Haitian immigrants who have come to our city. Now, our city had been shrinking for decades. We didn't have enough jobs. We didn't have enough opportunity. So people left and went somewhere else.
Okay. So they left and went somewhere else. And John Legend actually is starting to give us a little bit of news here about possibly why the government decided to drop a bunch of Haitians in there. But at the same time, given the depressed environment of Springfield, Ohio already, and the fact that some people even have left Springfield, Ohio because of the depressive nature of it economically and beyond, why would you agitate that by adding 20,000 more Haitians.
So when I was there, we had upwards of 75,000 people. And in the last 5 years, we were down to like 60,000 people. But of late, during the Biden administration, there have been more jobs that opened up. More.
And so, great. There have been more jobs that opened up. So maybe the people who were born in Springfield, Ohio, who had to leave because of the depressive nature of it, or who were suffering as it is, and there weren't enough jobs to go around, then maybe that's the time then for the people who are already there and the legals who are already there to take advantage of a now budding economy in Springfield. Instead of, right when things start to get better, the federal government drops 20,000 Haitians in there who don't have a job, don't have any resources at all, except for government resources. Why would you do that? So I thank John Legend for doing this smarmy little thing where he's going to call us all bigots. But the reality is he's actually explaining why it's worse, even though he doesn't know it, that they dropped 20,000 Haitians into a town that is just starting to recover economically.
More manufacturing jobs, more plants, factories that needed employees and were ready to hire people.
Yeah, okay. So presumably these plants and these manufacturing places needed more employees and needed to hire more people, and that there weren't apparently enough people in Ohio or around Springfield to take the jobs. So they're just going to drop a bunch of 20,000 Haitians. So the fact of the matter is, although I don't think he knows, the fact of the matter is that this, in his mind, was some kind of employment action, a job recruiting action on the part of the federal government to drop a bunch of 20,000 Haitians in there to take these jobs that suddenly are appearing. And imagine a Springfield, Ohio resident who John Legend just referred to, the one who had to leave Springfield, Ohio, their hometown. Imagine what they might be feeling if there is a renewal of the economy there and more jobs. Hey, I can go back to my hometown, the place I grew up in, the place where I raised my children. I had to leave it because of the depressed economy. Now the economy seems to be opening up, and just about the time they're about to go back to their hometown and celebrate being in the place where they think that they actually belong, in come 20,000 Haitians.
So we had a lot of job opportunities, and we didn't have enough people in our town of 60,000.
Yeah, you did. Yes, you did.
Jobs. And during the same time, there had been upheaval and turmoil in Haiti, and the federal government granted visas and immigration status to a certain number of Haitian immigrants so they could come to our country legally. And our demand in Springfield for additional labor met up with the supply of additional Haitian immigrants.
You buy that? Is that true? Because if that's true, that makes the situation even worse, especially in the Bidenomics economy where everybody is suffering. How is it possible that you could possibly put this square peg in a round hole and claim that there weren't enough people to take jobs in Springfield, Ohio, so they had to bring Haitians in to take jobs? I don't buy it. And even if it is true, that makes the influx of Haitians into Springfield, Ohio, even worse. So they brought them in purposely to take jobs that John Legend claims nobody else was taking. That cannot be true. And this seems like a very concocted lie, but the reality is, let's pretend it was true in John Legend's mind. And he's from Springfield, Ohio. Wouldn't you imagine that John Legend would say, oh my goodness, what a great opportunity for Springfield people to come back, or people who had to leave, or people who currently don't have jobs to go ahead and enjoy the budding economy, the budding new economy of Springfield, Ohio. So he's so out of touch, not only in the needs of the Springfield, Ohio residents, but with the truth as well, claiming somehow that all these plants are popping up and all these jobs are coming up, but those Springfield, Ohio residents, there aren't enough of them to take them, so we have to bring in Haitians. Now, if you can imagine what any other job recruitment operation could be with the federal government, how about moving people from Chicago or from some other small town that is dying and move them into Springfield, Ohio? So no matter what the truth is here, it's wrong. This idea that Haitians would be coming over just because there aren't enough jobs. It's an insult to Americans. And the federal government seemed more hell-bent on helping Haitians than helping Americans. If anything, this is an indictment of the Biden administration, even though John Legend doesn't even know it. That he's telling us right now, if it's true, and I don't really necessarily believe it is, but he's telling us right now that when it came time for the government to say, wow, Springfield, Ohio is budding, there are more jobs here, they decided they were going to import Haitians to take the jobs instead of help other Americans get those jobs.
And here we are. We had about 15,000 or so immigrants move to my town of 60,000. Now, you might say, wow, that's a lot of people for a town that only had 60,000 before. That's a 25% increase. That is correct. So you might imagine there are some challenges with, integrating a new population, new language.
And the challenges are all put upon as a responsibility, all put upon these Springfield residents. They're the ones that have to absorb the challenges. The city of Springfield, Ohio, isn't absorbing the challenges. John Legend in his bathrobe in Southern California isn't absorbing any of the challenges. John Legend or members of the federal government aren't being moved out of their apartments. John Legend or anybody else in the government, even in Springfield, aren't being denied benefits while they're watching Haitians get them. Or even imagine giving an American a voucher to find an apartment instead of a Haitian a voucher to find an apartment. What is this? And what really is going on here? That's the biggest question I have about the origins of this plan. And the closest we get to finding out the origins of this plan are actually coming from John Legend. We've had no explanation from the federal government for the influx of 20,000 Haitians. And believe me, they're going to do this again. They're going to do this again somewhere else. So at the very least, I have to thank John Legend, if indeed it's true about the motivations for sending 20,000 Haitians to Springfield, Ohio. If it's true, that is a revelation. And that is a bad thing. And so I appreciate John Legend being the first that I've seen actually explain the motivations behind sending 20,000 Haitians to Springfield, Ohio. So as much as I disdain this uppity, bathrobe-wearing dude who doesn't have to live like normal Americans live, and he earned it, by the way, so I don't begrudge him all of his riches and everything else. But the reality is we're finally hearing a story, even though it might not be the true story, but we're hearing one explanation for why they might have brought 20,000 Haitians into Springfield, Ohio, and it's a bad one. It's a bad explanation.
New culture, new dietary preferences.
Oh, okay. So now the residents of Springfield, Ohio also have to adapt to the Haitians' dietary preferences. I mean, come on. This is unbelievable. And the only good thing, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, the only good thing coming out of all this is the fact that Springfield, Ohio will be decidedly pro-Trump come November. Chalk one up for another small community of real people who are now going to be voting the right way, almost guaranteed. All right, coming up, this is something that we've talked about in the past, you've heard about in the past, about how the CIA and the State Department are involved in various forms of our media, Google, Facebook, other places, and beyond. Well, it's absolutely true, because now we're finally realizing, and this is a matter of fact, that one group, a so-called international fact-checking network, is actually funded by an element of the State Department. Wait till you hear what they're doing and who they're involved with on the other side of this. This is the Allman Report on News Talk STL. Good evening, everybody.
You're listening to the Allman Report on News Talk STL.
They're gonna put me in the movies. They're gonna make a big star out of me.
Good old Buck Owens.
We'll make the film
Oh, yeah.
that's sad and lonely.
I love Buck Owens.
And all I gotta do is act naturally.
He is the so-called Bakersfield sound of country music. Originated it, Bakersfield, California. And I remember as a kid, Saturday mornings and just loved him. My dad had the big stereo console and everybody get up and do stuff, whatever. And he would have like 7 albums that he would just stack up. And so all throughout the day, you know, the albums would just drop, you know. The records would drop. It'd be one record. After that was over, the other record would drop, and it just went on all day. It was the first CD player. The CD carousel, I guess you'd say. And one of the albums was always like a Buck Owens album. It was funny because my dad's variety and taste in music was, I learned a lot from him on that one. Because it would be like Buck Owens and then suddenly like Andre Castellanos and night music, you know? It was like, weird. And then it would be opera. So it was fun. Buck Owens, that was a great, really quickly about Hee Haw, you know? The guys who came up with Hee Haw and the hosting structure of Hee Haw were so good. Because so what they did was they got Buck Owens from Bakersfield, California, and Buck, you know, one of the emblems of the Bakersfield sound and the way Bakersfield came across was, you know, these guys would be all wearing their sequin suits and stuff like that. They look like super sharp in their white boots or whatever it happens to be. And then they paired Buck Owens with Roy Clark, who was more of the Nashville sound in country music. And the two couldn't have been more different in terms of their style of playing and their personalities. But mixing them together was perfect because it kind of covered everybody. And as a strategy to get as many people watching the show as possible who were interested in country music, even if it wasn't necessarily the Nashville or the Bakersfield sound, is they got both. And these guys were together. I'd love to hear more of a story about their relationship and what their relationship was like, because it's one thing I haven't done a whole lot of research about, but I'd love to know what that dynamic was like off camera and beyond. That's one of the questions of life that I have. You'd think that it would be something more esoteric and more lofty and intellectual. But if somebody asked me, like, what are the 10 things that you still want to know? One on the list would be, what was it like between Buck Owens and Roy Clark? That's just what I want to know. I bet they were dear friends. That's what I think. And I want to tell you, too, long time ago, before Buck Owens died, I saw on the internet, or I think right about when he died or whatever, I can't remember, a Buck Owens watch. I think it was available like on his website or on the website or something, and I almost got it. It was like only like $80 or something like that. I don't know why I didn't get the Buck Owens watch, but you know what? I'm really happy that now I have a Newstetter's watch. Yeah, Newstetter's Fine Jewelry. This is a watch, a Bulova watch. It's a Frank Sinatra line of the Bulova watches. Frank wore Bulova watches, classic, beautiful, and all kinds of different styles. And on the back, they come in this box that is like shaped like a record, you know, and on the back there's a song name on the back of the watch, and there's Frank Sinatra's hat at the 12 o'clock mark on the watch. You can't really see that right now, but they're gorgeous. And one of the offerings from my friends at Newstetter's Fine Jewelry, they're at Doherty Ferry and Big Bend. And they're also strong supporters of the Allman brand and a free common sense conservative radio. So for all of your Christmas giving needs as we head into the holiday, I know you're not maybe thinking about it now, but I would, especially if you were wanting some classically designed jewelry, especially if you want something made from the ground up. Richard Newstetter is one of the world's remaining master engravers, and they have these diamonds too that are lab grown. They have mined diamonds as well. The lab grown diamond is absolutely beautiful. That's where the Wow Diamonds comes in for the wowdiamonds.com website, where you can see them in all their living color. Just very briefly, the lab grown diamond is not a fake diamond. It's actually grown like it would in a mine. It's just grown in a lab. And they're beautiful. Everything about it is absolutely, totally natural. And Eric, my buddy, always tells me, you know, a lot of people say, well, are those real? It's like, well, let's put it this way. When you go to Schnucks or Dearborg's or whatever, or a florist, and you buy flowers, those flowers aren't like, people just don't pick them out of the ground. They're grown in greenhouses and everything else, and they're just as beautiful. And you present them to the people you love, and they love the flowers too, but they're lab-grown flowers, basically. And there's no difference. They're just beautiful. They're sometimes even more perfect than the mined ones. And so just so you know, the lab-grown diamond's awesome, all the rage now, all kinds of different wedding and engagement bands for you as well, necklaces, all kinds of really great gemstones at wowdiamonds.com. That's Newstetter's fine jewelry right there at Doherty Ferry and Big Bend. All right, this was scary and is scary. So there is a international fact-checking group out there, which is basically a censorship group. And it's been discovered that it's now funded and being funded by a State Department so-called cutout, just an arm of the State Department, and operates in the U.S. and is operating right now. This comes to us from the investigative reporter known on X as Bad Kitty Unleashed. So this was a report on the U.S. State Department funding the so-called international censorship group called International Fact-Checking Network, IFCN. So this report is this is how Bad Kitty puts it. This is a massive scandal. The State Department, who legally can't operate in the U.S., has been funding U.S. fact-checking since 2015. The news organizations that operate under the IFCN flag, such as the Washington Post, do the legwork, which then results in posts on Facebook, etc., being labeled and the algorithms throttling the post. The official International Fact-Checking Network is also partnered with Google. The Poynter Institute, that is an institute in Florida. I've been there before because they're supposedly an institute that trains investigative journalists and all that kind of stuff. But now, of course, they're for sale, and they are now part of the CIA-linked State Department's National Endowment for Democracy and Omidyar grants. So the State Department has something called the National Endowment for Democracy, and this is linked to the CIA. And you guys think this is crazy? It's not. They're operating in collusion with so many different media outlets. It's almost Orwellian and scary, but it's absolutely real, and there are receipts. If you recall, this is according to Bad Kitty again, recall that Google initiated the first ever U.S. censorship program and expanded it globally by using the First Draft Consortium. And this first draft also worked hard and hand in hand with this so-called IFCN Pointer's PolitiFact was in the first draft network. Now, this is like, Allman, you're like flooding my brain. I don't even understand what you're saying. So the Poynter Institute has a thing called PolitiFact. And this is all tied into the State Department funded operation for fact-checking. So it's all government funded. So it's the government basically doing this. Now, keep in mind, you're thinking, well, when Trump was president, maybe they helped him. No, they didn't. They, in fact, undermined him every step of the way. Because as you all know, the deep state was tied into undermining Donald Trump. And you all know, and you've heard this a million times before, about PolitiFact. Well, PolitiFact says, when you hear that, that's the government-funded arm of this censorship program brought to you by the Poynter Institute, which actually is the front for PolitiFact. Or PolitiFact is the front for the Poynter Institute. So whenever you guys, from now on, whenever you have somebody getting in your face and telling you, well, PolitiFact says this and PolitiFact says that, the reality is that is a government-funded censorship program. And it is completely, absolutely scandalous as far as I'm concerned. The government should not be involved in manipulating information, although we always knew it was. Now we know for sure that it was. Lesson from all this is when you hear something from PolitiFact, you know all it is a government-funded operation not designed to tell the truth, but to make sure that in many cases, the truth doesn't come out in any way, shape, or form. All right, speaking of the truth about Chris Wallace, he's decided that his big get this week is none other than Robert De Niro. Hilarity ensues. I'll bring that and more to you on the other side here. This is the Allman Report on News Talk STL.
You're listening to the Allman Report on NewsTalkSTL.
Good evening, everybody. Happy Friday to all of you. This is Common Sense Radio. This is the Allman Report. Jamie Allman here with you. Happy Friday to all of you. Friday the 13th. I hope you got through it okay without any missteps. I've never been very superstitious anyway, but you know. All right, so John Leguizamo, I mean, you guys, do you guys pay attention to The Daily Show anymore? I mean, it's just kind of one of those things. And it's one of those places where all these liberal hacks go and try to amuse the audience with lies. And in this case, Leguizamo made an assumption that I think needs to be debunked. And it's because of the efforts to try to curb the scourge of illegal alien voting. Illegal alien voting has happened. There was a move made by Texas Governor Abbott to clean the voting rolls in Texas, and they found 6,000 illegal aliens on the voting rolls. So people who tell you that somehow illegals are not voting or that's not a thing, they're lying to you. They don't have the facts, and they're just pretending it doesn't happen by saying it doesn't happen. That's the way the left wing does. They just say it doesn't happen, so it's not happening. Earlier when I talked to Mark Kaysen about the poll numbers, including Nate Silver and his 538 and the prediction of Trump winning. Well, that's not true. That's not happening. The Morning Consult poll is where it's at. Okay. Cat eating, duck stealing, or geese stealing in Springfield, Ohio. Not happening. So anyway, Haitians getting more benefits than Springfield, Ohio residents. That's not happening. Yeah, it is. We have it on tape. Anyway, that's their goal. So it is happening. And John Leguizamo on The Daily Show is insinuating something that I know you all know isn't how you feel.
So basically, the only people these Republicans want voting is white people. So if you want to vote, your skin better be as pure and as white as cocaine powder.
Yeah, not really. I want black people and Hispanics and anybody else of color you can find to vote in this next election. I don't want only white people voting, because I know a lot of white people who are a bunch of liberals, and if it's only white people voting, then I think Trump loses. Let's put it that way. And I will have to tell you that the legal immigrant population, the black voting population, the Asian population, the legal Asian population, black citizens, they're all leaning towards Trump in numbers that we haven't seen before. They still might be low, like, for instance, in the black community, but they are higher than they were, which is absolutely going to help Donald Trump. So I think you're fooling yourself, dude, if you try to tell people that us Republicans or us conservatives or whatever only want white people voting. That absolutely is not true. I pray that more people of color than at any other time in history vote in this next election. And you notice, too, there was a report a while back that I brought to you on this show about the absolute increase in numbers of registered voters in the black community as well as the Hispanic community. And they were assuming, since they were also making the assumption that that is a traditionally Democrat voting bloc, which I guess the numbers would bear out that might be true. They assume that was good news for Kamala Harris. I wouldn't be so fast in assuming that. In fact, I'd be more inclined to assume that they're probably going to vote the right way for Donald Trump because they're living lives like everybody else in a hardened economy. And so not so fast, people. But again, in debunking his point, No, I want other people than white people voting, if you ask me. I think you probably feel the same way. All right, so Chris Wallace, on CNN has decided his big get is Robert De Niro. Now, De Niro is a kook. Again, as I've said before, I don't begrudge people who are in a position of notoriety, who want to use their pulpit to talk about what they're doing. But to make somehow De Niro some kind of political sage, of course, we knew Wallace is good for this. I used to have him on the show all the time, and I'll never forget when it was Trump being favored. It was right before the 2016 election, and he was so mystified by the fact that there were a lot of people who listened to the show at the time who supported Donald Trump. I said, oh, no, there are a lot of people out here who support Donald Trump. Really? Yeah. And this was the time when Wallace didn't take him seriously. I don't think ever did. This is Wallace bragging about interviewing Robert De Niro.
What stood out is the fact that, frankly, people come on my show, our shows, because actors do, because they have something they want to promote. Robert De Niro had nothing he wanted to promote. He just wanted to talk politics, and he really wanted to take down Donald Trump. Take a look.
Yeah, okay. This idea somehow that, well, De Niro just came on with really no special interest at all in coming on. He just came on to tell us how he feels. It's like, no, there's an agenda there. He doesn't have to be selling a book to come on. There's an agenda there to kind of elevate his status. I can't figure out why De Niro thinks this is a good thing for his career. Just to separate it a little bit, like I talked about with music earlier, I do have to say that the Godfather movies, I'm never not going to watch. And sometimes the TV's on and the ball game is over or something, and I'm clicking around and there's the Godfather. I'm like, I'm sitting here watching the rest of it, even if I am in it 3/4 of the way or 3/8 of the way. I'm finishing that movie, The Godfather. Whether De Niro is a jackass or not, I'm watching the movie. Raging Bull, another good movie. De Niro's good. Goodfellas, love that movie, and we'll watch it every single time. I'm never going to throw great movies under the bus because of an idiot actor. Anyway, here we go.
Do you really worry that if he were to win again, and I'm not saying this like it's such a far-fetched notion, if he were to win again, that he would not give up power?
You know he won't. You know he won't. He even said it. He's never going to give it up. And anybody who deludes themselves in thinking that he is, shame on you.
You have compared the Trump family to a gangster family, which is something coming from you. What do you mean?
They are. Well, he because he thinks he's a gangster.
He is a gangster. I like the fact that he's a he's a gangster.
He does everything like a gangster.
Yeah, good. That's why a lot of people, normal, average, everyday people like him, because he's a gangster. And I would rather have a gangster-style guy in the White House than some namby-pamby, pusillanimous Bush or McCain or Romney. I mean, I would much, or a Paul Ryan, all these pansies out there. The only reason Trump got anything done in not only in achieving the nomination and winning the presidency is because he is a gangster. That's right, people.
I don't think that gangsters in that world would think much of him.
Yeah. In what world? You mean like your movies? What are you talking about? And again, De Niro isn't the smartest tool in the shed. He's just, the sharpest tool in the shed, because there are no smart tools in a shed. Sorry. But nonetheless, I'm mixing my metaphors there. But the fact of the matter is, President Trump is respected a lot around the world because of his gangster qualities. And it's interesting, on the one hand, I don't mean to be nitpicky here and crazy, but it's interesting how on one hand, gangster to Robert De Niro is a bad thing. Now, I understand that I could say, well, gangster in politics isn't good, but I like gangsters in movies. I get it, but you'd think that, when you watch a gangster movie with De Niro in it, the gangsters, the reason why people like these movies is because the gangsters, some of them at least, are actually likable. I mean, pretty much everybody, with the exception of a few, Turncoats and beyond, in The Godfather, are likable characters. One of the things you have to do in art is make characters likable, or at least someone that someone could necessarily communicate with or actually kind of get in line with, even if they don't like them. And to keep, and oddly enough, in a crazy way, an artsy way, Donald Trump has achieved a likability even if people don't like him. Get it? So Donald Trump, for many people, is a mysterious character, a larger-than-life character, but I think that has benefited him to a certain degree. And you all remember famously, earlier this week, it was the best line as far as I was concerned, when Trump said, you got to vote for me even if you don't like me. Even if you hate me, you ought to vote for me. He had said that during Hannity's interview with him. And he's right. It's a brand new voting bloc, but there is such a thing as likable bad guys. Now, I don't think Trump's a bad guy, but you know what I mean? In other people's world, there is such a thing as likable bad guys because all these successful gangster movies prove that. It's a thing.
Because there's honor among thieves. There's honor in anything. If you don't keep your word and do the right thing with people, no matter what profession you're in, you are going to get ostracized.
Yeah, and at what point does De Niro think that Trump hasn't kept his word? Trump did everything he promised he was going to do when he was running for election in 2015 and into 2016. He achieved everything he said he was going to do, including moving the embassy to Jerusalem. That was one thing the Republicans always promised they would do because they thought maybe the Jews would like him if they said it, but they never did it. He made all of the people around the world, other countries, start paying their own freight when it came to their own defense. He promised he was going to do that, and he did it. He promised to make us oil independent, and he did. So there's no way that Trump has ever not kept his word. Anyway, we end with that, people. Have a fabulous and blessed weekend. Ethan Valencia, thank you, and thank all of you. Good night.